Welcome to the first episode of the Bird's Eye View podcast, a weekly podcast where we talk about our two favorite teams in the NFL, the Ravens and the Eagles. So guys, for this first episode, we'll start off talking about the Eagles. They had some contract extensions.
Eagles signed Goddard to a 4-year deal, so we'll get him through 2025, and signed Maddox to a 3-year deal. And today we recently signed Edwards, TJ Edwards, our linebacker, to a 1-year deal. So it should be interesting to see what we can do with them through the years.
Stephen, your thoughts? Maddox and Goddard, big signings.
Yeah, very big signing, especially for Goddard. About time we finally extended him, especially since now that we've moved on from Ertz. And since the past few seasons, our passing game, a lot of the targets have been going to tight end, so our passing game is heavily relying on it. So it's more important than ever that we keep a very solid tight end in Goddard. And then with Avonte Maddox, I think that was a pretty solid signing too. He might not be the most elite corner, but he's had some good plays this season. I think he's better than in the past. And I mean, Darius Slay has been an absolute monster this year, but you got to keep in mind he's 31, so he's not going to be around you can't have him in the true long run. So Maddox is going to be more important in the long run unless somehow another great corner comes in.
And I forgot to introduce, I'm Michael Zabkowski, that's Zach Beatty, and that's Stephen Repa. Goddard is going to be a huge, I think he's probably obviously the biggest, not only biggest name, but when you start to look at other things as well, as you had said, Stephen, a lot of targets go to the tight end. And for a young and developing quarterback like Hurts, to have that, stability at any position, whether it's tight end or wide receiver, is great. But Goddard is even better for tight end because he has been with the team for a while. He has that kind of, he has that chemistry with guys. He has the experience, and that's also a good option when you're trying to bolster that wide receiver position as well. You're not quite solid right there with the wide receivers just yet. You have Devontae Smith obviously and Rager as well, but you're still, again, the wide receivers are young. You're still trying to get them more experience and try to give them more time. Goddard will be, he's a guy that you're going to be able to go to him forever. Not forever, but for the next 4 or 5 years here.
For the next 4 years, he's on that contract. And on top of that, Hurts, as you said, is like a developing quarterback. His deep ball and his accuracy and any balls thrown more than 25 yards has been pretty much in question. See, would you agree?
Yeah, it's still a work in progress.
And I think because of that, with that in mind, having a tight end that can be a true target is huge. Tight ends tend to be a 5 to about 15, 20-yard target, and Goddard is a big target. That man, he can block, he can pick up some speed, he's got very good hands on him. And we also have Tyree Jackson, was the quarterback that we just picked up this year. They apparently really haven't really seen much from him. He was on injury reserve for a majority of the season. He just came back, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he's been used primarily as a blocker, which has given Goddard an opportunity to really get out there and get open. And again, with Hurts is throwing his short, quick passes, Goddard is a perfect target, and he's shown that he can take a hit and keep hitting as well.
And he's a good dump down option as well.
Yes.
As you mentioned, blocking, I didn't even think about that till just now. With a developing run game, you have Miles Sanders, who's been kind of off and on with injury, or we don't really know what's going on with Miles Sanders, but whether it's Sanders or Howard or Gainwell was active a few weeks ago.
Well.
Boston Scott, that's what I was trying to think of. Having a great blocking tight end is almost just as important as having one that you can throw the ball to.
And I think that goes back to Ertz as well. He was a great receiver and one of the biggest reasons that we have a Super Bowl ring. But he was one of the worst blocking tight ends in the league. He's great at receiving, he can get the yards, but he can't block for a quarterback, he can't block for a running back. He can in certain times, but chances are it's not going to work. And especially in today's world, tight ends are blocking on, beasts of tight ends, or they're blocking on blitzing linebackers or corners, and it's they need to be able to move and block. And you put Goddard up against, say, TJ Watt, he has a heck of a lot more of a chance than Zach Ertz would. Ertz would end up somewhere on the outside, and Hurts would be down on the ground. So I mean, if you look at it that way, the way that the NFL is evolving, Goddard is a perfect guy to stick with, and he's young. Ertz is a lot older. Goddard is the youth that we need. He was one of our 2018 drafts, and with these recent signings, we've picked up almost all of those guys. Jordan Milad is a huge one. We signed him earlier this year. He was a 7th-round pick that nobody expected to be anything, and look at him.
Played rugby.
Yeah, he played rugby in Australia. I mean, actually, was he 7th round or was he undrafted?
He was 7th round. I remember.
And I mean, it's He's a true storybook, career right there. He's gone from nothing to never playing football until he was in his early 20s to being arguably one of the best linemen in the league right now. I mean, his numbers have, been incredible, at least thus far in the season.
Yesterday's game, seemed like you guys controlled the Saints pretty well. I didn't watch too much of it. I was kind of flipping back between that and the Ravens disaster, which we'll get to later. The disaster they won, but both teams won. One team played better than the other. But it seemed like, yesterday, I'm not saying the Saints are a great team. I'm not saying they're, playoff. I'm not even sure they're going to make the playoffs. But still, it was good to come out and see the Eagles control. Well, I mean, I know that you almost let them back into it at the end there. But it was good to see the Eagles come out and control a team for the entire 4 quarters of the game. Old school ball. Hurts only threw the ball 24 times. It was primarily a strong attack from the run game to get the Eagles win, and some good plays on defense as well. Slay had the pick 6, and then there was another interception as well. So it was all around seemed like a pretty good game for the Eagles.
I agree. I think offensively we definitely. I mean, would you agree? The game plan coming in was, I would think top notch with how it was running the ball against a Saints defense who was one of the best in the league against run defense. No team had more than, I believe, 100 yards rushing on them yet this year, and we had 175.
Yeah, we had 3 players that almost went 50 yards each against them.
Yeah.
And each offensive touchdown was a running one.
Sanders had, I think, 93.
Oh, yeah.
He almost had a 100-yard rushing game, and we didn't even play him for, I think it was like a quarter of the game he was out.
Yeah, there were full drives where you didn't see him at all.
Yeah. And I think that was also a big part of that is Sirianni finally listened to the fans and the organization as, hey, run the ball. We didn't think that would turn into the heaviest run game in the NFL. But they finally listened, and I think the success there is the fact that we have 3 running backs, whether it's Gainwell, Howard, and Scott, or Sanders, Howard, and Gainwell, or whatever the mix is there.
And then Hurts as well.
And then Hurts. And there's no, from a defensive standpoint, what do you set up for? You have Boston Scott, who's really small and can run up the middle, but he can also run out the side. He might not be the fastest, but he's tiny. And we had that in Sproles and McCoy. Now you have, Miles Sanders, who's an outside runner. He's not going to get much up the middle. He'll get maybe 2-3 yards. But you say, hey, we're going to run you on the right tackle, and he's going to get 20-30 yards. And he showed that a lot yesterday, and he'd break out. You've got Jordan Howard, who is a tank. You put the man right up the middle, and he's going to get 5, 6, 10 yards every single time.
That one drive, he was getting a first down every time.
Exactly. Because
first and 10, hand it to Howard, first down again.
Yeah. Because the defense had Sanders every other time. They're used to him, not really getting in there as much. Howard's a different man, and I think that's a huge thing. Is every single running back we have has a different strength, and Sirianni's using that to their strengths. He's saying this is what's happening.
I think defenses are forgetting at one point Howard was a top tier running back in the league.
Exactly, and he's showing that he still has the capability. He's not, Devontae Freeman, who can run about 2 miles per hour and cannot break through his own offensive line. Sorry, a little shot there.
We'll get to that.
I think the running game has truly picked up, with Hurts included. There was the play where he broke, I forget whose ankle it was earlier yesterday. In yesterday's game, it was in the 4th quarter, final drive, and he went right in for a touchdown, ran 20+ yards, and his running ability has truly changed, I think, our offensive scheme.
Yeah,
and I think it's good with Hurts, who's, I think, I'm not saying you guys, but other Eagles fans that I've seen on social media were getting kind of impatient with Jalen Hurts. They wanted him to be an elite passer right away, and that just doesn't happen. Whether you're Jalen Hurts or whether you're Tua, it doesn't matter who you are. It's going to take time to develop. Again, it doesn't matter whether you're Jalen Hurts or Peyton Manning. He only threw the ball, as I said, 24 times yesterday. That's, to me at least, I don't know what you guys think, that's perfect. I think, especially when you have a strong run game. If the run game wasn't working, then I'd say, sure, run the ball more. Throw the ball more. But when you have a strong running attack between Sanders, Howard, Gainwell, Scott, whoever it is, you're going out there, you're telling Jalen Hurts, hey, you're having a bad game, doesn't matter. We can hand the ball off to your running core, you're running in your backfield, and they can get 5 yards a carry, 6, 7 yards a carry. If you're not having a good game, and that kind of lets him develop a little bit more, knowing that he has a safety valve behind him.
Yes.
That, hey, it's just not my day. Hey, I got Miles Sanders and Boston Scott in the backfield.
And I agree that Hurts, the fans have definitely not given him an opportunity. And I think the big thing that people forget is he hasn't had a full rookie season yet. He came in last year, 3/4 of the way through the season, on a team that was just battered. Doug Peterson
couldn't make up his mind who the quarterback would be.
Every week it was who was going to start. Carson Wentz, at least in my opinion, was not a very good quarterback in that locker room. And I think many fans would agree. And I know Stephen agrees because that was a good look there for, the same reason.
Stephen doesn't like Carson Wentz.
I can't tell you many Eagles fans that do, and the ones that do, well, we're not going to talk about them. But I think the biggest thing with it is it was in and out, and the play calling was totally different. There was no running last year. I mean, Sanders, when he did run, he was doing well, but it was a very similar offense to Sirianni's early offense. Then you have Hurts come in this year, and it's a completely different coaching staff. So the play calling is totally different. The playbook itself is drastically changed. And I think that as well, people forget of, his second year, which he hadn't even played a full year. He had no preseason last year. The practice all over the place because of COVID. He has had to relearn almost everything that he already had. It's a whole different ball game, and it's going to take a little bit to get going. And he's showing right now that, we're about halfway through the season. The team's starting to find its stride, both on defense and offense, and, we're winning. And if we're not winning, we're really dang close to it. And I think, it's showing that you need patience.
And now, I just want to talk about using a variety of running backs. I just want to compare that to the 2017 Super Bowl run, because the Eagles did the exact same thing there, where you don't have a top tier rusher. And honestly, I'm staying true to this, and it's gonna be very hard to ever change my mind. You don't need a top tier running back to win a Super Bowl.
Not at all.
You don't need a leading rusher, but having a pool of running backs that are all solid and clearly show they're capable of contributing to a successful offense, that's the key with your team's running game. But because that Eagles Super Bowl year, you had a Jai, he was solid, Blunt solid, Clement, they all contributed. None of them were like a superior running back in the league, but they all did their part. They all contributed to making the Eagles offense look amazing that year.
And each one was fresh when you throw them out there. You're not playing one running back like you said for the entire game. It's, all right, we play you for a drive, then we're going to pull you out and we're going to put somebody else in, and you're sitting out for another half a quarter. And
I love that point, because that's what keeps the running back not just like long. When you keep them fresh, they can play longer career wise.
Yes, and they can also have bigger plays for each game.
When you have the one running back that you're just handing it off to every play, every game,
defense knows what's coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
We look at Titans with Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
It's every single snap, and then he gets hurt, and now they're sitting there going, now what?
A lot of these.
But Eagles, we just lost Jordan Howard. Most likely, is going to go on injury reserve for probably at least obviously 3 weeks. Who knows how long it'll truly be? But we're all right. We got Scott. We have Gainwell. We have Sanders. We still have a bunch of guys that we can rely on to get the game there. Now it sucks because Howard is definitely a very good running back that we need. He's that power back, but we have guys that we know that we're confident in that can still take in for him, and that's huge.
Let's get to the Ravens. I was trying to delay that as much as possible. And by now, we all know the story with the injuries. Marcus Peters done for the year. It seems like our entire running back, our backfield done for the year. We've had offensive linemen get hurt. Other guys on defense other than Marcus Peters. And yesterday, no different. It was worse, actually. We didn't have Hollywood Brown, which I may not be the biggest fan of, but he was still a guy that we probably needed, not having Lamar Jackson either. Jimmy Smith and Anthony Averett were also out. And in any other game or week, I would look at Hollywood Brown, Jimmy Smith, and Anthony Averett and say, those aren't terribly, you're not like devastated by not having those. But when you already don't have anybody, not having Hollywood Brown, especially when you don't have your star quarterback, again, I may not be the biggest Hollywood Brown fan, but when you have Lamar Jackson's...
Hollywood Brown is elite. He's the best receiver on that team. I don't know what you're talking about.
But
he's great. Best receiver in the
on
NFL.
That team.
When you're having Lamar Jackson's doppelganger go out there as a quarterback, you just need any target that you can get. And not having Hollywood Brown, that's going to hurt you whether you like him or not. Jimmy Smith and Anthony Averett are no superstars by any means, but when they have kind of been having to carry, having to do a lot more than they had to in recent years, not having them either, now all of a sudden you're putting Marlon Humphrey, who's already having more on his plate, you're having him do more now, especially, more than he was before. You have guys that you watch in the preseason that you thought, no, they're not going to play. Geno Stone, Brandon Stevens, whatever his name is, I don't even know. Like, there's guys that I don't even know their names who are coming out there and they're playing, meaningful ball. And, sure it was against the Bears, but, this season, any team can really beat you. But, all things considered, A win's a win. I don't know what you guys had to say about the Ravens
And I agree.
game.
You guys were on to 7-3 now, I believe, right?
Yep, 7-3.
I mean, it wasn't pretty by any means.
Year bought.
Yeah, I mean, that was brutal.
And I'm gonna talk on the Bears side. I mean, the fact that the Ravens managed to win that game with the situation they're in. I mean, on the Bears side, how can they not fire Matt Nagy?
If he's there next year,
The fans were chanting, "Fire him!" They all want him gone.
Yeah.
I saw some link to an article. I don't know how valid it is, but apparently there's now players that are getting fed up with him.
Oh, I mean,
I don't know how valid that is. Don't take my word for it.
And so Fields got knocked out of the game yesterday, and Dalton comes back in. And Andy Dalton, for Ravens fans out there, know that he's killed the Ravens in the past. And he comes in, I think, first few plays, he throws a 60-yard bomb to Darnell Mooney. And I'm saying, oh, my God, here we go again. You know, we've been holding him down all game.
deja vu.
Yeah, exactly. You know, worst nightmare. And, you know, we were holding the Bears down all game. Our defense played well somehow. He comes in.
Figure out how to tackle.
No, and yeah, we're going to get to that. But, yeah, usual suspects from the Ravens on defense. But, you know, Andy Dalton comes in, and he's, you know, he comes out, and he had a few good plays, and I'm like, why were they so quick to go to Justin Fields? And I've kind of been on both sides of the argument whether Fields should start or Dalton should start. But either way, the Ravens defense, there was some bad play calling there as well because, you know, Dalton comes in. We all, again, as I said, we know that he's killed the Ravens in the past. And the coverage zero defense isn't working. It hasn't worked against Tua. It hasn't worked against Jacoby Brissett. And it doesn't work when you're doing it every time. Dalton comes out, they do it again, and Dalton throws a 60-yard bomb. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. You're going to come out to have cover zero defense, and all you're saying is, well, if your offensive line can protect the quarterback for enough time, the quarterback's going to find somebody, and it's going to be a touchdown. And that's what happened. There was way too much cover one, cover zero defense.
See, I think the idea there was to back it up for Justin Fields. On a young quarterback, that'll work, unless they're, you know, something elite. But for most young quarterbacks, they're you know, they pick one different receiver they're going to throw to. And for Bears, I mean, I don't really know who you would say on that one. Or maybe Allen Robinson. And
he was out last week, I believe.
Yeah, that's true. So I don't even know who you would say.
It was Darnell Mooney that was getting a lot of the throws to him yesterday.
And then I would say for that, you just make sure that he's got one man on him at all times, and you can leave the backfield open. A young quarterback's going to pick, you know, one receiver that they're going to be their primary receiver for that day or for each play or whatever. So on a rookie quarterback or one that is infamous for making bad decisions, I think a cover zero would work.
Yeah, and that's fine for doing it against one
but
team.
But as soon as Dalton comes in, though, it's switch it up. That's when you call something different. You know, and as a defensive coordinator, you should know, you should have something in your back pocket for every single game that says, hey, if something were to go wrong, this is what you have. You need to have those backup plans. So when Dalton goes back in, it's, oh, hey, you know, Dalton made his money on having a deep throw. That's where he truly found his stuff. Is he'd have every once in a while he'd throw a 40-yard pass. Okay, then let's put something in the belly. You don't have to do, you know, cover three. Just throw somebody back there that's a safety net.
I only wish you could tell Don Wink Martindale that because he obviously didn't have
and
the
I'm
same
not getting
idea.
paid anything for this.
No,
okay?
exactly. And, like, that's what I'm saying. Against a young quarterback and against one team, it's fine.
Yes.
But when your entire defensive playbook is built on cover zero, what are we doing, right? I mean, and so the defensive play calling has been, like, iffy all season for me, but I look at what they're putting out there, and you know they've had injury issues. Some guys have not played up to expectations. So I'm saying, you know, for all things considered, it's not awful. But over to the offensive side, our only big problem with injuries have been running backs this year, and like Lamar Jackson, our play calling has just been dreadful. I don't get it. We have Lamar Jackson go back and throw 40, 50 times a game. And
I mean, you had yesterday Huntley do that. He threw
36 times yesterday.
36 times as his first career start.
I just didn't get it. And again, when you have and Ravens, their history is run game. The run game is what wins you games. Like Joe Flacco. I mean, we had Ray Rice, and I think there was another guy. I think it was Bernard Pierce. Like, they were good enough to kind of complement Flacco, and it was an evenly distributed game plan. I'm not saying that with Devontae Freeman and Latavius Murray, that's the same thing, but I think having Lamar Jackson or Tyler Huntley throw 40 to 50 times a game, it gets too predictable. And then when you run the ball, you're handing it off to the slowest man on the planet, Devontae Freeman, and all the defense has to do is
Walk.
walk to get him, and I just don't get it.
Well,
and I mean,
I think the other thing is the play calling on the side of things with the run game is the same runs every time.
Yeah.
It's not. There's nothing.
it's Avonte
different.
Freeman up the gut for 4 yards, and
Yes,
that's it.
and if it's not that, then he's running on the outside of the right tackle. There's no different switches. There's no draws. It's just the same thing every time.
And when he runs on the outside, he's so slow that he gets stopped for
about
5 yards.
-2 yards.
Yeah.
There's no nothing good ever comes out of it. I mean your offensive coordinator should go back to high school football because
No, they would not even. They would want him.
he can coach like a junior high team, some random middle school in middle of nowhere Iowa, because that's about the only place that I think they would be able to figure out his...
You can go coach a team at Wendy's.
And so, like, the running backs, we know the running backs are a big problem for the Ravens this year, right? So we have Hollywood Brown, who, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of, but he's known for his speed.
Wide receiver.
He's known for his speed. Yet we have seen 0 jet sweeps to Hollywood Brown this season.
And your jet sweeps are to random either... Well, there was
We don't run jet sweeps.
No, you had one a couple weeks ago, and I think it was Mark Andrews that took it. And it was some random, and I was watching it with you, and I remember asking...
I probably was
what
not
in the
watching it too
world
closely
was
at that point.
Yes, it would make so much sense to have a jet sweep with Hollywood Brown. And I told
Or
you
Devin
that
Duvernay,
week.
or Prochet,
Yes.
or Bateman, or anybody else.
Yes, and anybody that can run. Mark Andrews is great.
He's not
But he's a
running. He's
tight
a
end.
tight end. Yeah.
I mean, he's basically your best wide receiver. But he's not a speedy guy. He can take a hit, but there's a lot different from taking one hit in the middle of the field to taking 3 hits, 4 yards back from where you want to be. The play calling is to be, to be continued. We'll call it that, because there's a lot that needs to be talked about on that.
And the darn offensive line is so frustrating. We go and sign Villanueva. We traded away Orlando Brown Jr. to the Chiefs, who's having the best season of his career. So we traded away that guy who's having the season of his career. We signed Villanueva, and then we signed Ronnie Stanley, who never plays more than 3 games a season. He starts off the season great. He plays okay. He misses 1 week for a paper clip or a paper cut. And then somehow he goes down in practice with a knee injury, and then he's out for the rest of the season. Now we're paying him all the money we have.
That's what you get for signing an injured player.
I just don't get it. Orlando Brown, he wasn't awful. He was developing. He was young. He had plenty of time left in his career. He goes to the Chiefs, who are known for not having the best offensive line, and he's having the year of his life. And so watching in previous games, Lamar Jackson runs for his life, and that's he can do it, right? He may not.
I mean, that's where he makes his money. Is he's a running
quarterback,
one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the league, probably is
in NFL history, yeah. And so with him, I don't mind. Sure, the offensive line. I still want Jackson to be protected, but I'm not going to sit there and say, oh my God, Jackson can't get any protection. This is terrible, because he can go out and make plays on his own.
Yeah.
But with Tyler Huntley in his first NFL start. Not only we made him throw the ball 36 times.
Yeah.
But we had him roll out a few times. We had him roll out to his right a few times on the throw, which was perfect because he gets on the move away from the defensive rush, and he has a little bit more time to make some decision. And he kind of is looking at at his receivers as he's rolling out. But that was few and far between, excuse me. And having him throw the ball 36 times, most of that was in the pocket. And when our offensive line is like a revolving door, having your young guy making his first NFL start, it's just setting you up for disaster. And I thought, with everything considered, offensive line being atrocious, the wide receivers, we had a lot of them hurt or injured, hurt, sick, whatever. Running backs, we had nobody. I was pretty impressed with Tyler Huntley going out there and what was it? 200 passing yards.
He worked with what he had, and he showed that he can definitely be a good backup. And if he continues, Lamar, his first year, didn't he start second half of the season too? He kind of came in and...
Yeah, he started coming in the second half of the season.
And I think it was a similar idea of he showed that he's mobile. He showed that there was some stuff to be worked on, but there was a lot of positives, and I think Huntley showed that he's a great backup. He has the exact same mindset and the exact same capabilities of Jackson, which is exactly what you want as a backup. Before,
so you don't have to change the game plan too much.
Exactly.
It's just, hey, we're running the same
Lamar
stuff.
goes down, it's okay. We don't need to change anything.
And that's what they had said going into the game. They said, we're not changing our offensive game plan much.
Yes. And for your offensive coordinator who has no creativity and no imagination, you don't want to change your game plan because I think
he doesn't know how to change it. So
it'd be very scary. You would probably be. He would look at it as my quarterback can't move. He's cemented to the ground. We're gonna throw it every possible time, and we're gonna see if we can get it 60 yards down the field because you do the most predictable thing that every single defense could stop because it seems to be what he's getting at now.
He does that anyway.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If you didn't have Lamar Jackson, you guys would be nothing, and I truly stand by that. I don't think.
Oh yeah, I
you
agree.
would have no power in this league. You would be bottom of the division. It would be nothing. But he has brought you into this, and he keeps you in games. I mean, you can rely on Jackson to get you through anything, and I think it's showed that, without that, forget it. And that's any year, even when you had all your running backs. I mean, Jackson was the one that carried that team. So we'll see.
And yeah, I mean, so this was just a really weird game. It was a low scoring, slow down, run defensive battle. It was an old school kind of football game, and yet. The headline, not the headlines, but I want to say like the most notable things that come from this game were really ironic. We have no Lamar Jackson. We have Devontae Freeman actually had a decent game, all things told, and what everybody can really expect from him. Devontae Freeman scores the game-winning touchdown. Sammy Watkins catches a pass to set up that game, the go-ahead touchdown. Sammy Dropkins, yeah. And then our defense wasn't awful, all things considered. It was just really an unexpected game from everybody, which was just weird. I at the end of that game, I said, I'm not quite sure that's what I just watched. I don't understand what just happened. I don't know how we won that game. But taking a look at this week, guys, Ravens play the Browns on Sunday Night Football, and the Eagles play the Giants. What are you guys thinking about this upcoming week for the Eagles?
I think obviously now we're in the divisional stage, so I think this stretch of games are the most important because it's all divisional games, and you know how they are. They're the games that really matter, obviously. I think the big key factor coming up against the Giants is keeping that run game style of using a variety of running backs. I think that's going to be important moving on. I think Sirianni's now, obviously, as we talked about earlier, waking up to that.
He's finding his identity with the run game.
And I think with the success against the Saints team that's obviously probably a better run defense than the Giants, I think that's going to be a big key being just as successful again next week against the Giants defense.
And my big thing, and I've said this before, Boston Scott is the Giant Slayer. Every game that he has played in, he has just embarrassed the Giants defense, and they need to put him in. And which I'm sure they will, since we only have 3 running backs on the roster now.
Yeah. Must be nice.
Yeah, well, just wait. Eagles find a way to lose them all. I'm shocked that our offensive line is still standing here. Yesterday was I think it was the least amount of players that we have had injured in about 3 years.
Yeah.
And we had almost all of our offensive linemen except for 1 or 2, which is a incredible stat for us. I mean, considering last year the only lineman that we had for the entire season was Kelsey. But I think going into this Giants game, like you had said, it's a divisional game. It's going to be competitive no matter what. Giants are not a very good team, but they can compete. And they did beat the Chiefs, didn't they?
No.
They kept it close.
I think they lost by like 3.
Okay, so they kept it close, which was a lot closer than we were, which shows their offense can be more potent if it needs to be, and we don't tend to play very well against them, especially our defense. And I'm worried about that. Daniel Jones is a mobile quarterback, and we are not good there.
And they did beat the Saints and the Panthers, both teams we beat as well.
Exactly.
So they're definitely showed for those 2 games that they're a team that can definitely compete against us this year.
I also think, though, with it, the games, every single game that we have won, our offense has had an incredible showing. The Saints, we scored 40 points on. The
Chiefs,
Panthers,
you had 30.
Chiefs, we did have 30 points on. Panthers, wasn't it 33,
I don't think
30
it was that
something?
much. I thought it was much tighter.
Falcons, you scored 30 some on.
Panthers, I thought was a pretty big blowout. Every game we've had, we've blown out. Every game we've won.
The
what did you
Panthers
say?
was a comeback
Falcons, you
win.
kicked their butt.
Falcons was the
And the Lions,
opener.
we absolutely ended.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
every single game that we have won has been a blowout. And I believe Panthers was. Maybe it was a little bit closer.
Panthers was a come from behind win.
Oh, you know what? You're right. It was. Panthers was not close. You're right.
The main reason we won that game was getting interceptions.
Yeah,
in the
good old
first
Darnold.
game.
You're right. I did forget that. So every other game was a blowout except for that one, and that was when the offense showed up in the second half and came back. But forgetting that one, every game that we have won has been an offensive blowout. And if we can do that against the Giants, I don't think they can stop us. Their run defense is usually pretty good. This year it's shown to be iffy. And I think our run game will stick with that. On top of that, their secondary is not good. Hurts has the potential to have a very good game there.
And
it just depends.
And with Avonte Smith, who's had much better games
Yes.
this season in the past few weeks, I think this will be another game he can potentially continue his burst.
Yeah, I agree. And he's going to be double teamed as well, because he showed that against the Broncos that, he can, he's a weapon. And if you don't cover him with every possibility, he will absolutely embarrass you. And so I think that's another thing that'll be a test to see if he truly is going to be that receiver that we need, that receiver we drafted. So we'll see.
He's shaping up to be better than Arcega-Whiteside and in my opinion,
nobody
Rager.
will be better than Arcega-Whiteside. Rager's the biggest disappointment.
He'll be
we'll
better.
have.
I mean, Smith's already done a lot more than both of them.
Yes.
But looking ahead at Browns-Ravens, the Browns haven't looked great in the past few weeks, right? They won a nail-biter against the Lions. There was a game a couple weeks ago they didn't look very good in. But for knowing the Ravens' offensive line and their run game, I am terrified because the Browns have one of the better defensive lines in the league. Myles Garrett, I think, is Clowney still healthy or did he get hurt?
He's like a week-to-week thing, I think. Because he played a couple weeks ago. I know that
He played against the Patriots.
I haven't heard anything on him though, so I don't know if he's still. He did play against the Patriots, and I think that's the last time I heard anything on him. I don't know if he played this week. There was no articles on him or anything.
And the Patriots game was what I was thinking of. That was the last blowout.
They
didn't look very good. So
No, Mac Jones absolutely embarrassed
carved him
them.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just I think their defensive line. Look at what the Dolphins did to us, right? You take what they did against the Ravens.
Made the Dolphins look like they were,
Yeah.
undefeated Patriots. I mean, they
it was terrible.
embarrassed you there.
And now potentially Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett. I'm just like, oh my god, this is shaping up to be a disaster. And I'm hoping Lamar Jackson's back with his illness.
The biggest question mark is going to be Baker Mayfield. If he's healthy and he plays well, he's unstoppable. I mean,
It's not even that. Even if he's not healthy, we still might give him a few touchdowns.
This is true. But Baker Mayfield on a good day is great. But he's one of the most unpredictable quarterbacks because he can come out and be a top 10 or he can come out and be a bottom 10. There's really no way to know. He's something else with that. But he also has some of the most weapons in the NFL. The running core is incredible.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not even about Mayfield. It's about Chubb's gonna be back.
Is he gonna be back?
I think he was back
And they
on
don't
last
have Hunt,
week.
though, right? Is he
Hunt's
still
probably
gonna be
out, but still, even
But Chubb is
Chubb
great.
played, and I
they
think
also have
D'Ernest Johnson's pretty good for a
He's
third
good.
string
Yes,
running back. I wish we had guys like that.
Yeah. What do you mean? You have you've got some really great guys. Unfortunately, you let go of Le'Veon Bell. I mean, he was the best running back you had.
Le'Veon Bell is about as fast as the Liberty Bell.
Yeah.
But I look at this game and I'm thinking, it's just I don't know. I think this year for the Ravens, I'm not expecting anything at all because
You'd be better off to almost go down the remainder of the season and get a good draft pick out of it. To get either a running. I'm not saying I'm not. I just
we're 7-3 top of the division. We gotta fight for it now.
But I mean from the fact of
Ravens fans would lose their minds if we do that.
Wow.
They'll go crazy.
I'm not saying trash this season. I'm saying you'd be better off going down and picking up somebody, either an offensive lineman, a really good running back, or somebody like a linebacker, something that you could truly use that you have a giant hole in right now. Your running backs, you really don't have that big of a hole.
It's just they're all hurt.
They're hurt this year.
They'll be
linemen.
back.
You really need a good lineman. You need at this point I'd say a left tackle because Lamar's
We
blind
need all of
side
them. We
is-
need all of them.
Well, yeah, but his blind side is not covered at all. Somebody breaks
The whole
through that
thing's
on,
not
every
covered.
play.
Yeah, the blind side included, which is very important.
Yes, is very important.
Ravens have had 2 games where they won convincingly. The Broncos and the Chargers. And the Broncos are bad, and the Chargers were having a down stretch. So I look at this game, and we've had to come back in every single game that we've won apart from those 2. And against a division rival, I'm not having a good feeling about this. But looking ahead at the remaining schedules for both of our teams here, very, very opposite sides here. Ravens have an absolute gauntlet, and the Eagles have a lot of winning games. And I think that it's more important for the Ravens to win because they're going to have to pretty much win their division in order to go to the playoffs. And the Eagles, I think, at this point are pretty much fighting for a wild card spot. Unless the Cowboys fall apart, which is possible, but I think the Eagles, looking at their schedule,
will figure it out. I think they just had 2 bad weeks. They also played a Chiefs offense who is coming off a hot win.
I just don't think Dallas would lose enough games.
No, they have to lose out the season. And on top of that, most of their games at the end of this season are interconference teams, which are Giants, Washington, Eagles.
So much of your schedule.
I mean, they're all very beatable teams, especially the Eagles. They played us once and they embarrassed us. I mean,
that was rough.
Yes, and now that was in Dallas. At Philly,
could change.
That's a different
and
story.
if everything clinched up, maybe they rest their stars. That's you don't know. But on paper, it's like, okay, that's gonna be a game you lose. And then personally, for me, I don't know what you guys think. I think the Eagles, worst case scenario, I think you guys lose 3 more games. 1 to the Cowboys, and then both, like 1 between Washington and then another 1 between the Giants. All 3 of those, I think, worst case scenario. I think best case scenario, and probably the more realistic thing is two losses. I think is ideal.
I mean, I think best case scenario is 1. I think we can.
Well, yeah.
Giants are the most beatable team. Washington's defense is a big question mark. They don't have Chase Young, so they've lost their defensive end there, which is a huge thing for us.
And I hope we can beat the Jets.
Well, I would hope so. If you guys lose to the Jets, it might be over at that point.
That's a Philadelphia nightmare right there. We destroyed the Lions, but that was the most terrified I've ever been for a game. I really thought we were about to give the Lions their first win. And it also depends on what quarterback plays for the Jets. Maybe just to put the nail in the coffin, they'll put in Flacco.
Yeah. Well, hey, he's getting more playing time. He goes to get a good 6th-round pick.
Eagles never lost to the Jets.
Have we really never lost?
No, the Eagles are...
Knock on wood, guys.
We have ever lost to the Jets.
Well, until 2 weeks from now, and then we've officially ruined that record.
Looking at those games next week, let's do a little score predicting. We'll start off with the Eagles games. Steven, Eagles at Giants. What do you think?
All right, so I think the Eagles obviously the past 2 weeks have picked up some momentum. I think they obviously Sirianni figured out the running game works. It makes them better on offense, obviously. I think we'll see how the Giants are. I mean, they're obviously not the greatest team. We'll see how they do tonight against the Buccaneers because that's going on. I think the Eagles, have a good shot at winning, but I think being a divisional game, being in New York, I don't see the game being. It's going to be a very close one. Neither team's going to let up. I think they're both going to give each other a hard time throughout most of the game. I'm going to go with Eagles 20-17.
See, I was going to say something very similar. I was going to say 21-17. I think it's going to be Eagles have scored a lot of points recently. I think the Giants, being a divisional rival, it'll hold them down a little bit. But I think both teams are going to score a good amount. I think it's going to be a close game, as you said, Steven. I think 21-17, 24-21. It's going to be somewhere in there.
I'm around the same thing, but I'm thinking more 24-17 or one more on there and 20, maybe around 27. Something kind of random. You're going to throw it in there. Just because, and I'm not honestly sure if it's going to be Eagles or Giants on that.
You're saying that's going to be a score?
I'm saying 24-17, but I'm not entirely confident.
Who's going to be on that 24?
Yes. I'm going to say Eagles from the sense that I'm an Eagles fan. That's what I'm hoping for. But I think it solely depends on our secondary in that game. Daniel Jones is infamous for throwing his interceptions and making bad mistakes in crunch time, and I think that is going to be the seller of that game. Of who's going to win that game is going to be on turnovers, and I think that's what it's truly going to come down to for the entirety. Who can get the tone set first, who gets the ball first half, and who's going to score first will be I think who's going to win that. As it is it's a division game, so that's whoever sets the tone first will win that.
And so, what are you thinking about Browns Ravens? I'll let you start. I don't want to start on that one.
On paper, it's a very good defense in the Browns versus a questionable offense in the Ravens. Ravens have had games where they've showed up and embarrassed teams. They've had games where they've showed up and you've wondered what happened.
More times than not, it's the second one.
Yes. I didn't want to say that. I think it's going to end up... I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think Browns defense is going to show up, and I think Ravens are going to hold Baker Mayfield. I think he's not going to have a great game. And it depends on running backs, of course. I'm going to say it's going to be 17-10. I'm going to say Ravens on top, 17-10.
Well, you're certainly optimistic. I think I don't think Baker's going to kill us on Sunday night. I really don't. I think it's going to be Nick Chubb. I mean, go back to I don't know if it was I think it was last year. Nick Chubb ran all over us, and that was when we were healthy. So I think Nick Chubb. I think the Browns, especially with Baker Mayfield struggling, they're going to try to run the ball as much as they can. And
he's hurt right now too.
Yeah.
With his shoulder, with his neck, with his hip, his back. I mean, you name it, he's got something injured there. So they're trying to get the ball off of him as quickly as possible. I understand that.
And I don't know. I think that the Ravens. This is going to be a game that the Ravens either do another classic comeback, they pull one out of thin air, or it's going to be just like the Dolphins game where it catches up to them and they can't do it again. I mean, after last week, it's tough to think about what last week was compared to this week because it was our practice squad essentially against the Bears last week. This week, I don't know. I mean, one can only hope that Jackson will be back. I'm hoping that our defense can shut down Baker, who's been struggling. But with Baker Mayfield, the cycle is he does really well. He gets super hype, and then he has a bad game, has a few more bad games. People are hating on him, and then he comes back around and has a great game. We're getting to around this part where he's going to have a great game. So I think it's either going to be him that's going to have a good game or the running attack is going to go all over us. And I don't know. I'm thinking that it's going to be a close game. I actually think it's going to be high scoring. I'm saying it's going to be I think it could be a shootout, I think. But Browns haven't been, their offense, even with the running backs being back, haven't been great. I'm going to say Ravens are going to come out on top 31-27. 31-27, 31-24. I'm not super confident in that. It could come out the other way where Browns demolish us, but I'm going to say 31-27 Ravens.
All right, so I think this game being another divisional matchup, I think it's going to be very, very grinded down to the wire. Obviously, the Ravens have showed a lot of flaws the past few weeks. I think hopefully with Lamar being back, that can give the offense a little more of a boost. But I think overall, I find the Browns their consistency very pathetic.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah. All right.
It's pathetic. I think they're underperforming. I mean, I understand they have injuries. They had their injuries shares too, but I still think they could do better. I'm gonna go with the Ravens, 24-23. Very close.
Okay.
He called out the Browns for being so bad, and he was like, yeah, they'll keep it close.
I do want to say, though, real quick before we move on, is the Dolphins game, the reason you guys lost there offensively was Lamar Jackson got blitzed every play. He had no chance to run around. He got somebody in his face every time. Browns are known for either blitzing or just
that's what
Myles
I'm worried
Garrett
about.
getting in there, and I think that will be why it's going to be a low-scoring game. Is from the fact that he's not going to have much chance to get it out there. And your running backs, I don't need to talk too much about that.
Please
so
don't.
I think that's the issue, is Lamar Jackson's not going to be able to be as big a playmaker. Sorry, continue.
No, that's great. I agree with that. It could go either way. Ravens are so unpredictable that I don't even know what to think.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, I'm shocked they even won last week with our practice squad going out there. I mean,
Almost lost to the Bears.
well, I mean, I heard that Jackson was going to be out, and I was like, oh, we're screwed. There's no way. Right? Tyler Huntley never started an NFL game before. I was like, yeah, there's no way. It doesn't matter if it was the Lions or whoever it was. Lamar Jackson's not playing. I was like, oh, we're going to lose.
Huntley was made, as a perfect clone of Jackson. I mean, I
looks
think
just like him, too.
Harbaugh found some different
made him,
science lab and had said,
cloning
listen,
Lamar Jackson, yeah.
Put a speck of his hair in and said, listen, I need you to give me the exact person. There's not many differences there.
And with that being said, that will do it for the first episode of Bird's Eye View. We thank you for watching. If you did enjoy, please consider giving us a thumbs up. Hit the comments down below for your thoughts on what we touched on, and share it with your friends and family as well. And with that being said, again, thanks for watching, and we will see you next week.